going to do. Sorry, this is not the way that we. It's not the way that we planned it. You can't.
How's it going down there? Everything okay?
It's okay. Luckily, they can edit this. So. I'll hold your coffee.
All right. We're Wagon Wheel Title, a real estate title company here in Nashville. We have 7 attorneys on staff, and our pledge is that we will make our real estate clients look like stars, the stars that they are in all of their transactions, and we provide our clients with a first-class experience. On the podcast, our hope is to interview the very best of the best in the Nashville real estate industry and to bring real estate tips, tricks, stories, and news to anyone who is interested in real estate. We want to hear your questions going forward, and you can email us at mailbag@wagonwheeltitle.com. Again, that is mailbag@wagonwheeltitle.com.
All right, so I'm going to start us off and introduce Richard Courtney, one of the members of our panel. He is one of Nashville's preeminent real estate brokers and thought leaders. He's known to many as the eminently entertaining and enlightening weekly real estate columnist for the Nashville Ledger, but he's also a best-selling author, a radio show host, a former president of the Greater Nashville Association of Realtors, and a top seller of luxury real estate in Music City. A graduate of Sewanee, aka the University of the South, Richard has also been an advocate for affordable housing and a leading voice to the fight to end homelessness in Music City. And last but not least, he's also built one of the greatest private museums dedicated to the Beatles the world over. Richard's a mentor to the masses, and I'm proud he's a friend and mentor of mine. Welcome, Richard.
Well, thank you. And it's a great honor for me to introduce the two people to my left. First, I'll get with Rebecca DiNapoli, and one of the reasons you're here, I think, is to, at least that's what we've been told, is to share how we've gained success in the business. And Rebecca is one of the great stories of success quickly in real estate. She interviewed with our firm, with not Fridrich and Clark, but another one where I was, when she first got started about 7 or 8 years ago? 5 years ago, that's all. And so 5 years ago, and she wisely chose not to go with that firm. And and she didn't come with this one either, but she's done a remarkable job, and she's about to hit $100 million in sales in only 5 years. And that's been the most interesting thing for me, to follow people who have rejected me and see how they do in their career. And hers is one of the better stories. Of course, I hope they crash and burn, but she did not, and I'm proud of her success because I feel I'm a big part of that, since she didn't come with where I was. But anyway, that's Rebecca DiNapoli. She and her husband, who is a renowned person in the music business. He, if any of you know the show The Monkees, he replicated that in the country music world by assembling a band known as Little Texas, who had a number of hits, and they were people that no one knew at the time. And he put this disparate group of people together, and they had hits such What Might Have Been and God Bless Texas and things such as that. So that's Rebecca DiNapoli. She's done great. Steve Fridrich and I both got our real estate license at the same time, 1978, and that was before most of your parents were born, I know. But we've had a good time in the business, and we got to know each other in around 1980. Steve got his license while he was a junior at Vanderbilt. And he had a remarkable success in selling carpet, so he thought he'd sell the rest of the house while he was at it. And as remarkable as Rebecca's $100 million in 5 years is, when Steve started selling, his first sale was $42,000. So it's taken him a little while to get there. But I've been asking him this question. RealTrax only started in 1996, and it was the first internet-based MLS in the country. It was very innovative, and people were so excited about it. And so if you want to trace back Steve's or my sales, we only go back to 96 while we were licensed in 78. But I said, I think, to him the other day, I said, I think, actually for about 3 months I had to hound him. I said, I think you might have sold $1 billion since 1996. And he's, well, I don't know. I said, well, pull up your personal production. Let me see. And he wouldn't do it. So one day I just went back to his office and sat there till he did it. And it was $1,300,000,000 since 1996. I'm pretty sure, I'm kind of a stat hound. I don't think anybody in Nashville's ever done what he's done. He has been the Realtor of the Year, and he's been the Greater Nashville Association of Realtors. He was also No, I want to say one other quick thing. This is the funniest one. One time there was this psychic that we knew, and she said, you're going to be on national television. You're going to be the whole world is going to be watching you. And he said, well, that's kind of ridiculous. So he just missed it. And then his college roommate, Ross Perot Jr., father, Ross Perot Sr., decided to run for president. And he announced that presidency here, and he needed a secretary-treasurer, Steve Fridrich. And so he was an international TV star. Okay, I'll stop now.
That's excellent. And actually, it really leads in well to our first question, the only question we did not give you in advance, which is about something about you that most people might be surprised to know.
Steve, take it.
I think we already got a good one for Steve.
Well, Richard touched on it a little bit, but I was involved in a national presidential campaign, and I would think that'd be one thing people wouldn't realize. At the time we did it. I mean, I called Ross Perot Sr. and I said, I'm going to put you on the ballot in Tennessee. And he said, well, do whatever you want to do. And if you think that I should be the president, put it on the ballot. So I did, and we set up fax machines in our office. And I called him that morning and I said, I'm going to put you on the ballot. And he said, well, wait a minute. And the Today Show came and filmed us, and we sent out faxes to all over the country, to all major networks, up in Richard's wife's office, and it was real. I was wearing two cell phones, 3510600, and one was 9200. I can't even remember, but it was really fun, and it started a movement of a third party that had not been done, because we were the first, and we were the first for 40-something days, which means all the other states were calling and finding out, how did you do it? So anyway, that's a little fact. I wouldn't have even thought about it if you didn't bring it up.
Oh gosh, something that nobody knows about me. Is that the question?
Or few people.
Few
It doesn't
people.
have to be that secret.
I guess the most shocked that people learn about me is that I was a hee-haw honey. I was that's what brought me to Nashville. Is I'm an entertainer, and I have an identical twin sister, and we moved here, and we performed in Branson for many years, and Roy Clark saw us there and asked us to audition for Hee Haw, and we came up and auditioned, and that's what brought us to Nashville. And I was actually a real estate agent in Missouri at the time. So that's probably the most interesting thing. Yeah.
And you're also a competitive tennis player, we learned.
I love to play tennis, yes. I always say that, I had been like the 7-year reigning tennis champion of Richland Country Club. And I was like, well, that's kind of local. But then I went to the Compass retreat in Austin, Texas, and won first. Woohoo!
Nice.
So I was like, I guess I might be pretty good. So yeah, I love to play tennis. I was a scholarship in college with my sister, so I'm an athlete. Yeah.
That's amazing. Richard, which one are you going with?
Well, sometimes real late at night, when no one's around, I'll go in my closet.
You can stop.
And I'll shut the door and make sure no one can hear, and listen to the Rolling Stones.
Oh, that's a big secret.
Okay, I don't know how to follow that. So we're here today to talk about luxury real estate. We've got 3 experts here, and so kind of a question to kick off that topic. So what does luxury real estate mean in Nashville? Kind of a two-parter. What does luxury mean in Nashville right now? Second, would you describe yourself as a luxury agent? Like, what do you think your business encompasses?
Well, according to the National Association of Realtors, a luxury sale is something over $1 million, which around here is a starter home now. I think $3 million is a luxury home, but in the column that Angie referenced, I just went to $5 million. And 4 years ago, we sold 19 houses for over $5 million. The next year, we sold 40. The next year, 48. And this year, we're at 54. So over $5 million, I think, is the new $1 million. And there's no one who sells more luxury homes than Steve. I don't consider myself one because I have to look at him every day. And I have and worked to increase, my average price per transaction, and it's easier to do. All of us are, everybody here is with a great firm, but it's one of those things where it's like a catch-22. You need to sell a few luxury homes in order to be considered to get luxury listings, and so the thing to do is just manufacture one and pretend you sold it.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for inviting me to be here. And Richard, thank you for that humble introduction. And it wasn't that I didn't want to go with you as a realtor. It was that it was based on location of the company, because I was homeschooling my kids at the time. And also, I couldn't pronounce the name of the real estate company you were with. It was too long, and I could never pronounce it correctly. Would you agree?
Well, at that particular firm, they always left my name off anyway, so it was only it was only 2/3 as long as it sounded.
Well, I'm happy to be here in between Richard and Steve. Obviously, I'm in the hot seat. I feel it because they're so prolific, and I've really admired them for years, and glad to be here. Luxury real estate to me is... I think it's different for all people because, what would seem to be luxury for somebody that would buy on a lower scale is different than what somebody would be buying it on a higher scale. So luxury to me is what my clients think is luxury, if that makes sense. So, but I typically have gotten into luxury because I know a lot of people, being in the music business, and also around these guys. Luxury in Nashville is interesting. It's pretty much what Richard said. It used to be that $1 million was like, wow, you're going to buy $1 million home. But yeah, I literally have sold some bigger properties because there are people coming here that have California, New York budgets, Chicago, that are used to paying taxes that we don't have to pay here. And it's nice to be able to have that realm and to work with luxury builders. It's kind of what I have done as well. So that's pretty much what I think about luxury.
Yeah. I think right now it seems like so many agents are focusing on the term luxury and billing themselves as a luxury agent, and I agree that I think that luxury to one person might be different, or luxury to somebody might be a 3-car garage. I sold a house recently that has a bowling alley. Is that luxury? Does that make it luxury? I don't know. I sold a house that had a guest house. Does that make it luxury? So I'm not sure it's all necessarily focused on price, but it's what is it to that person? Is it a 3-car garage? Is it an extra bonus room? Is it 2 bedrooms on the first floor? So I think as agents, if everybody, it seems like all the ads I see now are, I'm a luxury agent, I sell luxury property. Well, the average house in Nashville is under $400,000. If everybody's focusing up here, you're going to miss out where the action is. And the luxury end can come to a screeching halt faster than the average area. So I would tell people maybe not to focus so much on where everybody's billing themselves as the luxury agents, even though Nashville's been very strong in the upper end price range. I think that there's so much business in the 300 to 500 to 700 range that's where the action is. That's where more sales are taking place in that range than there are in the $2, $3, and $4 million range. There's not enough business in that upper end business to keep 10,000 agents in Nashville busy. So there's other ways to make it than luxury, even though I know that's what we're focused on today. But I would encourage newer agents not to be shooting too high.
Three, 4-car garages, 2 masters on the main, lot size for privacy, obviously the size of home, enough place to work out of the house and not hear the kids yelling in the other room, especially since COVID. Upgraded finishes, building materials that are, very high-end. Desirable location is huge. If you're working with an athlete, they want to be close to the stadium. If you are, working for somebody that works downtown or at Franklin, they want to be close proximity of their highway for access to airports and so forth. But yeah, mainly just upgradable amenities and walk out main level to the pool. They want room for a pool. And gated is important, and fenced, fully fenced. That's kind of my list.
It seems like right now almost everything new is luxury, and everything new has the latest appliances, the latest handrails, the latest driveway pavers, the garage doors with windows in them. I mean, who would have ever thought you'd want to see into your garage? Well, garages are very big, and people are spending lots of money in their garages, and outdoor cooking spaces or outdoor living spaces. And in Nashville, Middle Tennessee, you can live outdoors quite a bit of the time, especially with heaters. But I would think that outdoor spaces have become very popular, and will continue to be popular in this region. In other might be, and you see all these new homes that they're building these spaces on the 3rd floor on the roof because they might not have yards. I mean, that is very cool and very fun living spaces. So it seems like that the new product has been so popular in our market. And I don't know what the next new product's going to look like, but there will be something new that we haven't seen yet, I'm sure.
I'm sorry. I'll forget about it. One thing I would add to that is one thing Nashville has not had historically, because we're on a big old pile of limestone, is swimming pools. And people from out of town, especially in luxury homes, are amazed at our lack of swimming pools. And if they want to add one later, it's a 2.5-year wait most of the time. So I think swimming pools are another thing. And one thing that luxury home buyers don't care about is they'll buy a house just like 10 houses in a row that look exactly alike. And sometimes I'll walk in one, and then I'll go next door and walk in another one. It looks just like that one. And I'll walk in another and they say, "This is it." And I say, Why? It looks just like all that other stuff we saw. But anyway, so I think that what they have said is right, of course, and then I would just throw in swimming pool to that.
Well, I was going to ask, do you think that the bigger garage is a result of, we don't have a lot of basements here, right? Which I think is also kind of for the same reason that you're talking about. Do you think?
That could be too, and then in the other luxury, the downtown condo luxury market, for example, they don't even have cars, and sometimes you'll ask for a driver's license, they'll say we don't have one, and that's somebody buying a $2 or $3 million condo downtown. So I think there's the downtown luxury market, which is completely different. Excuse me. From the and Rebecca has mastered the new construction. I mean, that's one thing I noticed when she got in, when I was hoping she would fail, is that she was listing things for $8 and $10 million right and left, and they were selling. I had what I thought was a luxury listing, and she brought a buyer, and they tore it down.
Back to garages, I just sold.
Thank you for that, Bill.
I was a runner-up in a house where I had a 4-car garage, and they purchased a house that had a 4-car garage, but they were tall ceilings, and they were going to buy racks and stack cars inside the garage, and their ceilings in their garage were taller than my house's ceilings in the garage, and I lost out over the garage. It wasn't the house; it was the garage.
Luxury again in the eye of the homeowner. Okay.
So, we work with a lot of developers, and we'll see developers kind of grow up over the years, right? Like maybe they start in, the medium market, and next thing you know, they're building a huge house somewhere. So kind of a follow-up to these questions, are there a couple of things as builders and developers are trying to move up market that you just got to see every time? If you're going to appeal to the high-end home buyer, you have to have this. And then on the flip side, like what's something that might have been important 10 years ago, or something that people think is important that you look at it and you're like, they spent a lot of money on that, but nobody's going to care?
Well, when I started, we would advertise a home that had wall-to-wall carpet and Harvest Gold appliances, and we thought that's a big deal. And hardly anyone wants those anymore. But it's just gone. Like appliance people they got the racket now. I mean, they change appliance colors, and I mean, stainless steel used to be like, are you kidding me? We're not going to put that in our kitchen. And now, every kitchen. And the funny thing is too, every kitchen now, when I write about the sales of the week, everyone says chef's kitchen, gourmet kitchen. And I didn't know we had that many gourmets moving to Nashville.
Yes, I kind of agree with that. Right when I got into real estate, I believe that just like, oh, you're buying a house with granite, you're doing like really good, granite. And now granite is like, no, you have granite? No, that's, it's an old school thing. So, the quartzite, the faddish things that are always hitting the market. I typically tend to, if I have a buyer, guide them toward a house that has more classic style, things that are not faddish, things that won't go out of style, so they won't be changing it in 5 years, because that's about the turnaround of when things are new, the latest and greatest. And so, and that way they won't spend a lot of money on their home. But yeah, just simply granite and is what I mainly see. And when you have granite, your house is out of date, which is kind of weird to me.
Right. I'm going to take a little bit different approach. I think from a builder standpoint, their reputation has got to be stellar, because as this market changes, a lot of the builders today have never been through a downturn. And so they can have when they're brand new and finished, they have all the right stuff and everything looks great, and anybody would want to move into them. But as the years go on, 4 or 5 years or 10, their reputation, do you want them to be saying this is a Richard Courtney home? Did his name mean something in the business? So their reputation, because when I'm selling a new home, I require my buyer to call the last 3 or 4 people that builder built for and saying, did he live up to what he said he was going to do? Did he finish on time, or was he over budget? If he was over budget, was it your fault or his fault? And has he followed up on his warranty? And so, as many of the pretty things you can put in a house, I think that the builder standing behind it and their reputation is just as important as the house.
I think that's really key. I know from a title side, we will hear that, and over time you'll learn, and as you guys do, who the solid builders are that come back and follow up, and who doesn't. Okay, so for each of you, whether it was your first career as real estate or your second or your third, tell us a little bit about how you ended up where you are today. And I'm sure you all just woke up and had all these clients and did great, but.
Well, Richard alluded to it. I did take get my license my junior year in college, and my father had a company. They had 8 agents, and I was single. I had no interest in being in the residential real estate business because everybody I knew that was in the business, you had to work weekends. I wanted to be on the lake. I wanted to be snow skiing. I wanted to do all the other stuff you do on weekends. So I was kicking and screaming, even getting in the business. And but I did sell a condominium on Post Road for $42,500 my first year, and made $1,200. And a lot of my friends had worked all summer on a golf course and didn't make $1,200. So I thought, that's not bad. I mean, so that worked. And so that's kind of loose. So I had a stepping stone in that my father had this company for me, but I didn't want to, he wasn't selling he was a partner in the company, but he had an insurance company also. And so I just stepped in. And then, just like maybe the times we're in, or the builders, most of the builders I dealt with in 2008 are no longer in the business. And the same thing happened when I first got in the business. A lot of people had to get out. Interest rates hit 19%, and we were struggling on how to make things work, and we did. And I had an opportunity to buy my father's partner out, and that led me into the business. That took it to a different level for me personally, is how I ended up getting into it. Not counting making a sale or two and all of a sudden had walking around money. It was kind of fun.
He still has walking around money.
I feel like I want to ask if real estate or insurance is better.
Believe me, there's been times because I've been through 4 cycles that were significant, that in 2008, I think I was ready to move to the insurance business where you had reoccurring income. And
that does seem like a good time to move.
Oh gosh, I think I touched on it a little bit. Growing up in Missouri, I lived in Missouri all of my life, and I did have my real estate license in Missouri. As I was working real estate during the day, I was entertaining at night on a Branson show with my identical twin sister. And so when we had landed Hee Haw, we obviously moved to Nashville, and I didn't really get my license at the time because I was all into the Hee Haw thing, but later in life, after I homeschooled my kids, and also when they were ready to go to school and not listen to me anymore, I put them into school, and then kind of picked up on the real estate again. I got my license at the end of 2018, I believe, in Tennessee, but I actually started or have been a commercial property manager for 25 years, and a lot of people don't really know that. So a lot of my clientele came from that automatically. A lot of my property management was self-owned with another partner. My husband and I owned with another partner. And so I property managed for 25 years. And then when we sold out, I continued doing that. So I'm still doing property management. And I also, a lot of people don't know that I'm an acquisition agent, and I currently do acquisitions for Croft and Associates, which is a company. I go out and negotiate easements for utility companies. So for Piedmont mainly, for Metro, for sidewalks, for expansions of roads, also signage, that has to go up. So a lot of people were surprised about that, but I've been doing that since 2018, and I won't let it go because it's such great money. So I do that, and it brings me clientele. You know, I meet people all the time, and they love me because I'm bringing them money to put in an easement for utilities, and so that's kind of how I've built my clientele. Yeah, and then I've done some accounting work too for. I'm a numbers girl, so I've done some accounting for people.
You're happy to go
Do
after
books.
her. Right, Richard?
Okay, Richard.
I think I might need an interview with you. I was teaching school right out of college, and I was at my alma mater, Columbia Military Academy, and I was Catholic, and it was bought by the Church of Christ, and for some reason those two religions clashed, and they suggested that I find employment elsewhere. So I came to Nashville to work at Nashville City Bank, and I lived with Lee Williams, who some of you may know, and he's a friend of mine since about the third grade. And Lee was working for C&S Builders, which later became Fridrich Homes. And at the bank, I had to leave every morning about 6 o'clock, pay to park, put on a three-piece suit, wingtip shoes. And Lee would get up about 10 o'clock and put on an eyes out a pair of khakis and some, at that point, hush puppies and go off to work. And I thought, and he made about 3 times what I made. I thought, well, that seems like a pretty good idea. So I got in it there, and it was really interesting, and this is one thing I think is important for people to do. Everyone should work with a builder at some point. And I was with C&S Builders, and we were doing government subsidized houses. So there were 4 salespeople, and we had contests every year, and I came in dead last. The first year was 66 sales. And but I watched all 66 of those homes come out of the ground, and I did 68 and 69 the next 3 years, and then the government subsidies went away, and I had to get a real job in real estate. So I think working with construction is very important, but that's how I got in.
I like it. I didn't know any of that, so that's awesome.
So how many realtors did you say in Greater Nashville Association of Realtors, roughly?
About 6,500.
6,500. Okay.
I use the number 10,000 in Middle Tennessee.
Wow.
But I mean, and at one time there were like 4,500 listings, so you do the math, and it doesn't work out. We don't all have, there's not enough for each one of us to have a listing there for a while. I mean, the number's increasing now.
That's amazing. So, most of those realtors are not where you guys are, and it's hard for people who are not in your position a lot of times to even see the ladder, right? Like, how do I even get there? And so maybe show us behind the curtain a little bit. If I'm a younger realtor and I'm going in to pitch for a luxury property, and you guys are on the other side of that pitch, like, what are you telling the customer? Like, hey, this is what I'm going to do because your property's so excellent.
I say you don't want to list with Steve because he does so many of them. He's not going to give you any attention. And I don't try to compete with Rebecca because she does everything. So when I was trying to get into that market, that was my thing, that you will be the biggest thing that ever happened to me in my real estate career, and I'll give you undivided attention.
I can attest to that. Just recently I was sitting next to Richard, and he's like in the middle of a story, his phone rings, and he's like talking to the person. He's like, write down, and he's like, okay, so your number is 615. I'm like, writing it, like emailing it to him. So definitely there for your clients, which I love.
I think for me, I'm kind of a do-it-all agent. I don't really focus in one area. I just kind of do it. I'm very approachable. I'm real and honest, hands-on. I treat my clients like they're my family members. I get my hands dirty. I'll go and put on a gas blowered backpack, and if nobody's home to prepare that property to be shown, I will blow off the leaves like you would never have seen. It's kind of my therapy, and I also have Mandy Smith, who's on my team. She's awesome. She is my man behind the curtain, or lady behind the curtain, that does a lot of my work for me. So if I have too many leaves to blow, I'll say, Mandy, get your blower. Get on over here. So I feel like that I mean, we've cleaned toilets. We've saved frogs from fountains that we've cleaned out. I've gone to Home Depot to buy some mortar to fix some rocks that fell off of a stone house. My dad was a preacher, and we had 6 kids, and my dad was a do-all guy, and he would never forget, our car broke down one time in our driveway, and we couldn't get to somewhere, and he went into the house and he opened up the screen door and he got this wire off of the screen door, and then he put up the hood and he fixed something with the wire off of the screen door, and then the car started. So I kind of learned that work ethic from my father, and just kind of get in there. I don't like to hire it done. I kind of do it on my own, and I feel like my clients can see that. They're like, I'm a really hard worker to try to get things done.
Richard's built me up to like I have no competition, or that I just walk in and I get any listing I want to have. If I just get in their living room, I'll have the listing, which is not true. I still feel like I'm competing for almost every listing I have, and I really try to focus on what I maybe can do for them, and try to build a relationship with them that I'm there and I'm listening, and I'll try to accomplish what they need to do. I mean, I feel like my job is, in the market that I work, is really knowing other agents and the relationship with the other agents and who they might have. I mean, I have several networking groups and emails and texts that I am constantly communicating with other agents, and having agents call me, do you know something in this price range? Do you know a house in this area? And I feel like I try to get my seller, if I'm competing for a listing, to understand that I'm in the market, I'm every day, and I'm trying to find out who might be the buyer for their house. And just as any of us do it, or any other agent would do, but I really want them to know that I'm on their team, and I'm competing, and I do feel like that with the number of agents out there, anybody can put a sign in the yard, and anybody can put it in MLS, and I tell them that. I mean, any of the agents out there can do it. It's just, what am I going to do? You know, how do I get their attention and maintain it, and let them know that I'm on their team?
And I would like to rebut what he said, because it is true. I mean, to get to his office, he has to walk past my office, and he works all day long, every day. He's flying in and out of that office on the phone, millions of papers, whatever they may be, in his hand. And he has built this business, and this is something that everyone can learn, is you need to find whatever it is. Like at one point, Christy Wilson controlled Sylvan Park, and Steve has billed me. One time when we were about 25 or 6 years old, I went over to his house, and he had a stack of invitations about that big, and another one next to it. And he said, I've RSVP'd those, and these I got to get to. So he's been networking, because we're not 25 anymore, for 40 years, and he's been, and you have to get out there and press some flesh. You can't, like when I was at that company that she rebuffed, I had an agent and said, I got to run I said, I'm going to the bank. I need to get this commission check in the bank. And she said, you can do that without going to the bank. And I said, are you kidding me? I see 10 people at the bank, and I know the people, the tellers and the CSRs and everything else. And I think that's one thing that people are falling by the wayside, is the personal touch and the personal contact, and the fact people need to see you, and that's what he's the master of.
But I think getting involved, and when I look back at the things I've been involved with, I didn't get involved looking for business. I got involved for my kids' schools, or our church, or our church real estate committee, which is only 5 people, and I wasn't looking for business out of those 5 people, but usually something would happen 2 or 3 years later, and it being involved in so many my kids going to horseback riding and, you know, just meeting the other parents there. I didn't do it. That's not why they got involved. But I mean, my daughter, that's now a senior, a rising senior in college, I met some kids in her class that I've sold 3 and 4 houses to that I would not have known. So I think it's just being present, being involved in so many things, and not always looking for business. You know, it'll happen if you're there. If you show up, it'll happen.
So this is going to be hard because y'all have so many amazing stories, but if you could just share one favorite or interesting story about your career, you know, your time in real estate, what would you share with us?
Well, my favorite thing is that people should always let buyers know about ceiling joists that are covered in insulation in an attic. Because one time Sandy Howery and Tommy Patterson and I had a buyer in Hunterwood is where it was, and Sandy was jumping from joist to joist, but she didn't realize that, and so was Tommy, and so was I. So luckily for us, the buyer had a briefcase in one hand and her purse in another. So she took a step and just right down, but luckily her arms caught on the joist. So her husband says, "Run downstairs and push her back up through." Well, I ran down there, and what do you know? She was wearing a dress. And so what I saw was more than her husband or she wanted me to see. So I ran back upstairs and said, "I think this might be a job for you." And he said, "What's the matter? Go down there and get." I said, "She doesn't have any clothes on." And so we jokingly said that we had an artistic rear end chandelier in that garage.
You know, you mentioned that one of your keys to success was pressing the flesh. So it seems that was a...
I did not press that flesh.
Oh my gosh, who can beat that, Richard? I don't know. That is so funny. Oh gosh, for me, I guess what stands out for me would be that one of my very first listings I had was a house in Belmead, and it was a second home, and it was out of date, and it wouldn't sell for a while. And so I had told my clients that let's do some upgrades, you know, to make it sell for the price that it would sell for. And they lived in Florida, and they were doing their own renovations on their luxury home in Florida. And so I told them that I would take on their house, and so I became their general contractor. And I hired masons. I hired a concrete guy to come extend the driveway. We did new cabinets. We did new stone fireplaces and mailboxes, and I did irrigation, and I did lots of painting, lots of power washing, and golly, the list goes on. And before all that happened, I had to hire someone to come in and do an estate sale to get rid of all their stuff. And so I did that, and then I sold their car at CarMax for them. And I did all of this, and they never came back to see their house after it was complete. And I did about a $200,000 renovation on their home. And they said, "We're afraid to come back, Rebecca, because we may not want to sell it." And I said, "Don't come back." So they literally didn't come back. And I sold it, and yeah, then they moved on. So that was my interesting story.
I have several. And I really do wish I'd made notes and written a book, because it's some of the stories. I'm going to tell the most recent one. I had a call on a large house in Leapers Fork, and had 2 houses on it and a lot of property, and somebody told me that they had somebody who wanted to buy it, that they were in North Carolina, and this person, they couldn't tell me who it was. And I said, okay, and I said, "Can you get me a financial letter?" And they said, "Yes, we can get you one, but I cannot let you know till," this is recent, I think it was end of February, we could let you know who it was. They'll be in town on that day. They're retiring, coming off a movie set, a TV set or a movie set from the West Coast, getting ready to go through divorce. All these things were adding up, and all I had was a phone number. And so, I wanted to believe this story, so I set it up for them to come see it on the 28th, and we were going to hold it off the market because I'd had it on the market and I put it back on the market. We were going to hold it off for 2 weeks until this person wouldn't tell me it was a male or a female could get in town. Well, I had this phone number, and I gave it to my seller, and my seller started checking around, and it turned out it was Kevin Costner. He was coming off Yellowstone. Wow. None of that had been announced. He was getting a divorce, had not been announced. He was going to retire. All these statistics added up. My seller found all this out. Then he found out that my person I'm talking to is a hairdresser in North Carolina and is obsessed with Kevin Costner and knows all this information. So I went to Tommy Patterson in our office, and I lined it all up, and he said, "Why do you believe this?" And I said, "Because I want to believe it." And that was all the wrong reason. I've been doing this long enough. My antennas should have been way up, and I should have known, but I wanted it to happen so bad. Not that it was Kevin Costner. I wanted to make the sale, But and then I've had 2 situations of people that got into empty houses of mine and were living in them, and we went, and both of them were high-profile sellers, pro athlete, and another one was a federal judge, and went in the house, and all of a sudden we're in the house, and my assistant said we could see insulation on the floor. Turns out the guy was in the attic while we were in the house, and he came at night. He'd picked our keys up off the counter, and he would come back at night and sleep in the house because there was a bed in there. So, I mean, it was really scary. And they gave me, he said he was going to buy the house, gave me false financial information, and it just, there's weird situations out there.
So who was in the attic?
A person that was just had claimed that house he was going to move into it.
A squatter, great.
Can I add one thing? Just it's a real quick one, but Mandy can contest to this. But I had this girl, and I thought she was going to buy this luxury property. And I were like, yeah, hook, line, sinker. She loves it. She loves it. And she wrote this big letter. I got this letter. She said, I want you to give it to your sellers. And I was like, okay, great. People used to write letters to try to get that, So the letter basically stated that she loved the house so much that God spoke to her and wanted them to give her the house. So I was like, oh my goodness. I didn't even give it to I didn't give it to them because they would have left me.
You're like, dear buyer, God did not speak to the seller.
Right.
Right. So I think this is a great question for this panel. So tell us how you all get smart about real estate. What do you read? What do you listen to? I think we're in a situation where there's just so much information and so much data. I'm a religious reader of Richard's column. It's where I learn a lot of things. But where do you all really go, and what kind of things do you listen to, read? Steve's talked about networking, the importance of having kind of close groups of advisors, but we'd love to hear each of your take on that.
I do read Inman every morning, but so much of that is focused nationally, and so much of it's focused on a lot of the large companies, and we're still a niche player. And but it's interesting to see what's going on in our business and where it's headed. I mean, as I was talking to Steve earlier, everybody wants where we are. Everybody wants to be in the living room where we are, and so everybody wants part of our business. The insurance companies want in there, the title companies want in there, the lawyers want in there, Target wants in the living room to sell while we're there. So, as far as reading and updating now, I mean, I read Richard's column, I mean, I'm a Wall Street Journal guy, and I read, again, most of that's national stuff. I still read our local paper, and I probably go to the obituaries first. Only because I'm at the age now that all my parents' friends are passing away, and it's a challenge every day to see, do I know anybody in there? My name's not in there. I'm okay.
You know, I don't know if you guys saw this, but Warren Buffett recently said, if you want to avoid mistakes in life, write your obituary and then live up to it. So I've been reading obituaries to write mine. So if you find some good ones, just send them my way. So far, I really haven't found any that are like all that great.
I guess I do a lot of Nashville Business Journal. I read a lot of the trade magazines. Do a lot of bi-weekly real estate meetings at Compass. My brokers are great about sending us detailed and articles about current happenings in the real estate industry, both countrywide and locally. And awesome Richard Courtney's amazing blogs. Yes, because he's just so awesome. So, yeah, I mainly do that in between the busy times that I'm selling real estate. So that's my jam.
Well, the way I learn most of what I know about real estate currently is by writing that column. So I suggest everyone get in the practice of writing your own, whether it's published or not, because I have to research everything and get a new angle every week. And so 52 times a year, I have to write basically a term paper on the current market conditions. And so I look at every sale that happened that week. I have part of it's called the sale of the week. So I look at that. I call the listing agent and the buyer's agent and try to get more information from that. And I think also I go to all these wine and cheese and luncheons and breakfast and things and communicate with other realtors, because that's where you'll get, down in the trenches information. I do read Inman and the local paper, and I'm surprised how many people don't read the local paper, because that's a great way to find out what's going on around here. So that's what I do.
So just last question, if you could each give like where people can find you, the best way to contact you if someone's listening and they're looking to buy or sell.
In my case, it'd be I only have one cell number and one email address. It was interesting. We recently we were going to switch out the phones in our office, and we did a survey. I was buying a whole new phone system for everybody's desk, and I think when it was all said and done, we ended up with 10 people that wanted phones. Nobody wanted them. So you can find me on my cell phone, 300-5900, which I paid $20 to get that number 30 years ago.
Google Rebecca Norris DiNapoli Compass, and my website will come up, and I'm here and ready to work for you as a buyer or seller. That's my pitch.
Yeah, the same with me. You can find me anywhere, I hope, by Googling me and find me. But I will say this, back to what you're talking about. I remember one time, it was about 1989, and Tommy Patterson came back from like a CRS class or something he'd attended. And he said, everybody's going to start taking their home number off of the real estate signs. And I thought, well, that's the end of it all. I'll just keep my home number there and I'll get all the business in the world. And it was revolutionary that people took their home telephone number. And one reason is everyone had a home telephone, for one thing. And we do put the cell there now anyway. But it has been interesting to watch the evolution of the way people are contacted. And also the hesitancy of some agents to answer the phone. My columns due by noon, theoretically. I usually get there by 2 on Mondays, and on Monday morning I try to do the research to see what I'm going to put in case something happened over the weekend that might be of interest. And I've been amazed. Someone called me back the other day, and it was the 4th person out of 1,100 columns, meaning 2,200 agents. This was the 4th one to ever call me back.
So call Richard back. Well, thank you guys for tuning in for another episode of the Real Estate Mailbag, hosted by Wagon Wheel Title. I think we're going to, though, go ahead and ask if people have questions. Thank you for you guys who are here in person today. We realized last week, we were like, wait, we all had to reschedule at least I think at least 3 of the 6 of us we had scheduled originally for last Thursday, and we had graduations that all popped up between scheduling and doing. And so then it was like last week, and I was like, oh, Tuesday morning after a 3-day weekend, this is not smart. So thanks for you guys who remembered. But does anybody have any questions for these amazing panelists?
Well, that about does it.
Well, okay. I think we've asked ours, so thank you guys for coming, and thank you guys so much. Oh, wait.
I do want to